The late afternoon sun burned through the Los Angeles haze, turning the streets into rivers of light and sweat. The smell of roasted corn and fried dough floated through the air as cars rolled past the intersection of Jefferson and Maple. Miguel Alvarez's food cart sat at the corner, a small island of color amid the gray city. He was 52, a Mexican-American immigrant who'd spent the last 10 years perfecting his street vendor hustle: sweet corn, hot dogs, a splash of chili sauce. For most passersby, Miguel was just that corn guy, but for the locals, he was part of the neighborhood rhythm. That rhythm shattered when the police cruiser pulled up. Two uniformed officers stepped out. Officer Ryan Holt, broad-shouldered, fresh buzz cut, the kind of man who carried his badge like a license to dominate, and his partner, Officer Kellen Reed, quieter but no less rigid. Holt eyed the cart like it was a crime scene. "You got a permit for this?" Miguel wiped his brow. "See, officer, I apply already. Waiting on approval." Holt sneered. "That's not how it works. You can't just set up wherever you feel like it. You're blocking the sidewalk." "It's just," Miguel started, voice small. "Don't just me," Holt barked, taking a step closer. People slowed down to watch. A woman with a stroller stopped. Two college kids began recording on their phones. Miguel lifted his hands, palms open. "Please, sir, I move. I move now." "Too late," Holt muttered, and before anyone could react, he kicked. The metal cart flipped sideways, scattering corn, condiments, and Miguel's meager earnings across the concrete. The sound was sharp, ketchup bottle bursting, oil hissing, and Miguel stumbled back, stunned. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "You can't do that," someone shouted. Holt spun. "Mind your business." That was when the voice cut through the noise, low, calm, controlled. "Looks like you're having a bad day, officer." The crowd parted as a man stepped forward. He wasn't wearing a uniform, just jeans, a gray t-shirt, and a cap pulled low. But his posture told a different story. Shoulders square, steps deliberate, eyes sharp. The kind of man who didn't bluff. "Who the hell are you?" Holt snapped. The man raised his hands slightly, a smirk ghosting his lips. "Name's Daniel Kane. Marine Corps, retired." "Then keep walking, Marine," Holt growled. "This isn't your concern." Daniel tilted his head. "When a man kicks another man's living into the street, that's everyone's concern." Reed shifted nervously. "Danny, just leave it, man," he murmured, but Holt was already stepping closer. "Back off before I arrest you for interference." Daniel's eyes flicked to Miguel, who was kneeling, gathering soggy corn with trembling hands. A little girl, maybe 7, tugged at her mother's sleeve, whispering, "Why is the police hurting him, Mommy?" Something in Daniel's chest twisted. He'd spent a lifetime following orders, defending civilians, watching lines blur between power and abuse. He'd seen this look before: fear in the eyes of the innocent, arrogance in the eyes of the uniformed. He took one slow step forward. The crowd's phones lifted higher. "Officer," Daniel said quietly, "you just destroyed that man's property in front of 20 witnesses. Maybe take a breath before you dig the hole deeper." Holt's jaw tightened. "Are you threatening me?" "Not even close," Daniel replied. "Just reminding you there are cameras." Holt's eyes darted around. The phones, the whispers, the red records blinking like tiny accusations. Then he did something reckless. He shoved Daniel in the chest. The crowd gasped again. Daniel barely moved. "That was a mistake," he said softly. Holt stepped closer, face inches away. "You think you're a hero?" Daniel exhaled slowly, hand still low. "No, officer. Just a citizen reminding another to stay human." The silence stretched, tense, electric. And then Holt raised his hand. Maybe it was instinct, maybe rage, but as he started to push again, Daniel's reflex took over. A single, sharp motion. Slap. The sound cracked through the air, sharp as a rifle report. Holt stumbled sideways, shocked. The crowd erupted, shouts, laughter, cheers. Someone yelled. He slapped the cop. Reed stepped forward, panicked. "Danny, what the hell?" Daniel didn't move. "You can arrest me if you want. But first, you apologize to that man." He pointed at Miguel, still crouched among broken bottles and ruined food. Holt's face flushed deep red, rage boiling under embarrassment. "You're done, Marine. You're done." Daniel's gaze didn't waver. "Been done for years. But I don't stand by for bullies." Sirens in the distance, more units responding. The crowd had doubled now, filming, shouting, narrating for their social feeds. A chant started small at first, then louder. "Justice for Miguel. Justice for Miguel." Daniel turned toward Miguel and offered a hand. "Come on, amigo." Miguel hesitated, then took it. His palm was rough, trembling. "Thank you. I didn't know what to do." Daniel smiled faintly. "You stood your ground. That's more than most." Behind them, Holt radioed furiously, demanding backup, voice cracking with fury. Daniel looked back once, at the scattered food, the angry officer, the cheering crowd. And for the first time in years, he felt something stir, not the rush of combat, not adrenaline, but the simple, stubborn weight of doing what's right. As he walked Miguel away from the chaos, the phones kept recording. By the time he turned the corner, the video already had a name online. The slap heard across the street. The slap was still echoing long after the sun went down. By the next morning, every phone in Los Angeles seemed to vibrate with the same notification. Marine slaps cop after officer kicks street vendor's cart. The 30-second clip had spread like wildfire. TikTok, YouTube Shorts, X, even late-night Reddit threads. Someone slowed the footage, added dramatic music, and called it the slap heard across the street. Within 12 hours, it hit 5 million views. Daniel Kane woke to the sound of his phone buzzing itself off the nightstand. At first, he thought it was one of his old Marine buddies. They still checked in sometimes. Then he saw the screen, hundreds of messages, missed calls, unknown numbers. He tapped one link. There he was, frozen mid-motion, palm connecting with Officer Holt's jaw, the crowd gasping. Underneath, comments poured like floodwater. Finally, someone stands up to these bullies. "This guy's a hero. Lock him up. He assaulted an officer." Daniel exhaled slowly. His face, his name, his past, it was all online now. Someone had dug up his service record, his medals, even an old photo of him with his unit in Iraq. He rubbed his temples. Jesus Christ. Across town, Officer Holt sat in his precinct's briefing room, ice pack pressed against his cheek, temper simmering. The chief's voice was tight. Body cam footage stops just before the incident. "That looks bad, Ryan." Holt slammed the ice pack down. "He assaulted me on duty. After you kicked the vendor's cart," the chief said flatly. "You realize how this looks? We're getting death threats, protests forming outside. Because of a punk Marine and a cell phone video?" The chief leaned forward. "Because people saw what they think is abuse of power. Until Internal Affairs clears this, you're on administrative leave." Holt's jaw flexed. "You're hanging me out to dry. Or keeping you from drowning," the chief said. By noon, reporters camped outside Daniel's small apartment building. He watched from behind the blinds as cameras panned up, narrating live. Sources confirm the man seen confronting LAPD officer Ryan Holt is Daniel Kane, a decorated former Marine sergeant. Witnesses say he stepped in to defend a local street vendor named Miguel Alvarez. Down on the sidewalk, a cluster of neighbors chanted, "Justice for Miguel." Daniel stepped back. His pulse thudded in his ears. The last time he'd felt this exposed, he'd been under mortar fire overseas. Only now the battlefield was digital. His phone buzzed again, a number he recognized. "Captain Mason," he muttered, answering. "Danny, what the hell did you do?" The voice crackled with disbelief. "You're trending worldwide." "I didn't plan it," Daniel said quietly. "Guy kicked a man's cart like it was garbage. I reacted. You hit a cop on camera. I stopped a bully." Silence hung. Then Mason sighed. "You always had that savior complex. Listen, lawyers are already talking about charges. Keep your head down." "Too late for that," Daniel murmured, glancing at the reporters. Meanwhile, Miguel Alvarez sat in his daughter Sofia's small bedroom, phone clutched in both hands. The GoFundMe page someone had created for him read, "Help Miguel rebuild his food cart. Justice for street vendors." It had passed $40,000 overnight. Sofia looked up. "Papa, the man who helped you, he's famous now." Miguel smiled faintly, eyes wet. "He didn't do it for fame, Mija. He did it because it was right." On her laptop screen, Daniel's face filled the thumbnail, serious, humble, the reluctant hero. By late afternoon, the storm reached Washington, D.C. Talk shows debated it, politicians tweeted statements. One congresswoman wrote, "Accountability must go both ways." Another said, "We must protect our officers from mob justice." The city felt split in two, half calling Daniel a patriot, half branding him a criminal. And through it all, Daniel refused interviews, refused sponsorships, refused to speak, until a knock came at his door. He opened it cautiously. A woman stood there, mid-30s, tailored blazer, calm eyes. She held up a badge. "Detective Leah Rowe, LAPD Internal Affairs. May I come in?" Daniel nodded, stepping aside. She scanned the small apartment. Bare walls, a folded flag on the shelf, a duffel bag by the couch. "You've had a busy 48 hours, Sergeant Kane." "Retired," he said. "Not according to half the country. They're calling you a hero." "Heroes don't trend." She smiled faintly. "Maybe not. But videos do. I need your side of the story." Daniel gestured to the chair. "You already saw it. I saw a clip. I want context." So he told her. The heat, the shouting, the kick, the fear in Miguel's eyes. When he finished, Leah Rowe sat quietly, pen still. "Do you regret it?" she asked. Daniel thought about it. The sound of the slap, the cheers, the shame that followed. "No," he said finally. "But I wish I hadn't needed to." Leah nodded slowly. "That's the same thing Miguel said." Daniel looked up. "You talked to him?" "An hour ago. He's scared for you." "Scared for me?" "The department split. Some want you charged with assault. Others think Holt crossed the line. It's political now." Daniel leaned back, eyes tired. "Figures." Leah stood, closing her notebook. "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. But I'm not the one writing reports." "Then who is?" She hesitated. "Chief Dawson. And Holt's got friends in high places." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Of course he does." Leah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, then pocketed it. "Stay reachable, Sergeant." After she left, Daniel stepped onto the balcony. Below, protesters and supporters filled the street, signs waving, chants colliding. One banner read, "Stand with the Marine." Another shouted, "No one is above the law." Helicopter lights swept across rooftops as night fell. He closed his eyes, letting the chaos hum beneath him. All he'd wanted was to stop a wrong. Now he was the face of a movement he never asked for. Inside, his phone buzzed again, an unknown text. "They're coming for you tonight. Leave the city." Daniel froze, staring at the message until the screen dimmed. Outside, sirens wailed closer. He grabbed his jacket, checked the hallway, empty. But down on the street, he saw them. Two unmarked sedans rolling up slowly, headlights off. Reporters turned, shouting questions as plainclothes men stepped out, badges flashing in the red-blue strobe. Daniel's instincts kicked in, the old combat awareness that never really dies. He slung the duffel bag over his shoulder and slipped out the back stairwell. As he reached the alley, another phone buzzed, this time a call. He answered quietly. "Miguel? Senor Kane? They're saying on the news you're dangerous. Please don't run." "I'm not running," Daniel whispered, scanning the alleyway. "Just finding a place to breathe." "Where will you go?" Daniel paused. Somewhere in the distance, a helicopter spotlight swept the block. "Anywhere they still believe in doing what's right," he said, then hung up. He disappeared into the shadows as police radios crackled nearby. Above the city, the night carried a new headline. "Hero or fugitive? The Marine behind the slap vanishes." And somewhere, watching the live coverage, Officer Ryan Holt smiled. Morning crept over Los Angeles beneath a blanket of gray clouds. Helicopters thudded above the skyline. The whole city buzzed with one question: where was Daniel Kane? At LAPD headquarters, the mood was thick as diesel smoke. Inside a glass-walled conference room, Chief Dawson stood at the head of the table while internal affairs officers shuffled papers and avoided eye contact. Detective Leah Rose set a small recorder in front of her. Subject: Sergeant Daniel Kane, retired, she said. Status: fugitive, public figure, national debate. The chief's jaw clenched. Find him before the media paints him as a saint. Leah's eyes narrowed. Too late for that, she thought. Overnight, hashtags had turned Daniel into the people's soldier. Memes, murals, and a song on TikTok that looped his slap to the beat of freedom drums. Meanwhile, Officer Ryan Holt sat in the same building, head down, shades hiding bruised pride. He watched the footage again, frame by frame. The moment of impact replayed endlessly, each click louder than the last. His partner, Reed, lingered near the door. You shouldn't keep watching that, Reed muttered. I'm not watching, Holt growled. I'm remembering. Outside, protesters filled the plaza, half chanting Daniel's name, half screaming Blue Lives Matter. The air smelled of sweat, smoke, and fury. Miles away, Daniel drove a borrowed pickup down Interstate 10, eyes flicking to every mirror. The early light bled across the desert, painting his windshield gold. He hadn't slept more than an hour in 2 days. Every news station carried his face. Even the gas station clerk recognized him. Hey, you're that guy who smacked the cop, the kid had said. Daniel had just smiled thinly. Used to be. Now, parked at a rundown motel outside Palm Springs, he spread a cheap paper map on the bed. Dots circled routes south to Mechila, San Diego, maybe across the border if things got worse. But running never solved anything. It only delayed the truth. He stared at his hands, steady, scarred, the same ones that once held a rifle, now branded by a single slap. A knock rattled the door. He froze, reached for the duffel, fingers brushing the handle of his old sidearm. Unloaded, more habit than weapon. Daniel Kane, a voice called softly. It was Leah. She stepped inside, wind-tossed hair framing eyes that hadn't slept either. You're hard to find, she said. You're brave to come alone. Don't flatter me. I had to turn off my tracker to get here. Daniel gestured to the chair. So, what's the verdict? She sat, pulled a flash drive from her pocket, and set it on the table. Not yet public. This came from Miguel. Daniel's brows lifted. The vendor? Leah nodded. Someone dropped it at his door. It's backup body cam footage, unedited. Shows Holt kicking first, yelling something racist. You only stepped in after. Daniel exhaled slowly, the tension leaving his shoulders like steam. Then it's over. She shook her head. Not even close. Dawson wants you discredited before that video ever surfaces. Why? Because if it leaks, the department burns. Holt's already tied to 2 complaints swept under the rug. Daniel leaned back. So they'll bury me to protect the badge. Leah met his eyes. Unless we get this file somewhere safe. Media, federal oversight, anywhere outside Dawson's reach. A rumble passed outside, the low growl of engines. Daniel's instincts twitched. He crossed to the window, peered through the blinds. 2 unmarked sedans idled by the curb. He turned. They followed you. Leah's pulse jumped. That's impossible. Headlights flared. Doors opened. Get down, Daniel hissed. Glass shattered. Bullets tore through the motel window, scattering plaster dust. Leah dove behind the bed as Daniel dragged her to cover. The air filled with the roar of gunfire. Daniel yanked Leah to the floor just as another volley splintered the dresser mirror. Shards rained like glass rainbows across the carpet. Move, he barked. They crawled toward the bathroom, bullets chasing them like angry hornets. Who the hell are they? Leah shouted. Not cops, Daniel grunted, snatching his duffel. They don't aim to arrest. He cracked open the window in the bathroom, smashed out the frame with his elbow, and helped Leah climb through first. The air outside was heavy with desert dust and gunpowder. Sirens wailed in the distance, late as always. Daniel dropped down behind her, and they sprinted through the narrow alley behind the motel. Tires screeched out front, engines revving. The shooters had noticed. They ran until Daniel's lungs burned. Behind a rusted fence, they ducked into an old car wash. Daniel checked the clip of the pistol. Empty. He tossed it aside and looked at Leah. "You good?" She nodded, shaken but fierce. "You planned this?" He gave a half-smile. Planning stopped working a long time ago. From the alley's mouth, boots crunched on gravel. Shadows stretched, moving closer. Daniel grabbed Leah's hand and gestured toward the drainage canal behind the lot. Without a word, they slid down the slope and into the dark concrete tunnel below. The world above muffled to a dull hum, just the echo of dripping water and the rush of adrenaline. Leah finally broke the silence. "They'll frame you for this now. 2 officers wounded, maybe worse. You look like a fugitive for real." Daniel stopped walking. "Maybe I am." She stared at him. "Don't say that." He turned toward her, face shadowed under the flickering tunnel light. "Leah, I've seen this story before. You think justice wins, but justice is just who's left standing when the smoke clears." She stepped closer. "Then make sure you're the one left standing." For a moment, the war veteran and the detective faced each other in that cold, dripping silence. 2 people against a system built to crush inconvenient truth. Hours later, in downtown Los Angeles, Chief Dawson poured himself a drink. On his office screen, news anchors debated Daniel's heroism, while police spokesmen called him armed and dangerous. He muted the sound, picked up his phone, and dialed. "They didn't get him," said a voice on the line. Dawson's expression hardened. "Then find someone who will." He ended the call and stared at the frozen frame of Daniel's face on the screen. "You're not a hero," he muttered. "You're a mistake I'm going to erase." Meanwhile, far from the city, Daniel and Leah crouched by a dying campfire near an abandoned gas station. The desert wind howled through the empty pumps. Daniel watched the flames lick the edges of the flash drive. "You sure about this?" Leah asked. He hesitated. "Once it's out there, we can't take it back." "That's the point." He looked up at the stars, clear, cold, and indifferent. "Then we finish it." Leah smiled faintly. "We'll need allies." Daniel's eyes glinted in the firelight. "I have a few old friends who still believe in honor." He reached for his phone, powered it on for the first time in days, and sent a single encrypted message. Somewhere across the border, a satellite pinged to life. A reply flashed back. "Received. Operation Phoenix wakes at dawn." The flames cracked. Leah stared at him, realization dawning. "You started something bigger than a slap, didn't you?" Daniel's gaze stayed fixed on the horizon. "No," he said quietly. "They did." The wind carried away the last embers, leaving only the hum of distant thunder, storm clouds gathering over Los Angeles again. And as the darkness deepened, Daniel knew one thing for certain. The fight hadn't ended in that street. It had only just begun. The desert was silent except for the whisper of wind through the scrub. Daniel watched the horizon, waiting for headlights that never came. The phone in his hand buzzed once. No name, just a symbol. The outline of a burning bird. He smiled grimly. Phoenix had risen. From the darkness, 2 motorcycles approached, engines low, lights off. The riders stopped 10 yards away and lifted their visors. One was Marcus Vega, former Marine sniper, Daniel's brother-in-arms. The other, Tara Lynn, a hacker who'd once rewritten an entire city's surveillance grid during a blackout. Marcus dismounted first. "Didn't think you'd call that old signal again." Daniel clasped his hand. "Didn't think I'd need to." Tara's gaze flicked to Leah. "And the detective?" Leah crossed her arms. "The one keeping him alive." They moved inside the abandoned gas station. Maps, batteries, a few rifles. Marcus's idea of welcome gifts lay across the counter. Daniel spread out the flash drive's decrypted contents on a battered laptop. Still frames from body cams, timestamps, police reports edited and re-edited until the truth vanished behind bureaucracy. "This file proves everything," Leah said. Holt's assault, Dawson's cover-up, the threats against Miguel. But without a broadcast point, it dies in silence. Tara cracked her knuckles. "Leave the broadcast to me." By dawn, they were rolling toward Los Angeles in a stolen van, dusty and armed with nothing but data and desperation. Marcus drove, scanning the rearview mirror. "City's on lockdown. Dawson's got checkpoints everywhere." Daniel nodded. "He thinks we'll run. We're not." Leah glanced over. "So, what's the plan?" He looked at her, eyes steady. "We take the truth right into the lion's den." Downtown, chaos simmered. Protesters clashed with riot police. Walls were plastered with Daniel's face above the words. One slap started a storm. Helicopters circled like vultures. Inside LAPD HQ, Dawson barked orders. "Lock down the news towers. No unauthorized transmissions. Find Kane before the city burns." A young officer hesitated. "Sir, public support's turning." Dawson slammed his desk. "Then we remind them who keeps order." By noon, Operation Phoenix was in motion. Tara sat in the van parked a block from Channel 7 News. Her laptop screens glowed with cascading code. "Firewall cracked in 3-2, got it. You've got a 5-minute window before every broadcast switchboard resets." Marcus chambered around. "Plenty of time." Daniel checked his vest. No gun, just the drive and a press badge Tara had forged overnight. Leah touched his arm. "You walk in there. You can't go back." He smiled faintly. "Wasn't planning to." They stepped into the storm. Inside the lobby, guards scanned IDs. News anchors hustled between sets. Daniel kept his head down, the forged badge swinging from his neck. Leah followed, pretending to argue on her phone. They slipped through a side door and into the main control corridor. "Studio C," Tara's voice whispered through the earpiece. "That's your uplink. You're 30 seconds from global broadcast." Then everything went wrong. A security alarm shrieked. Red lights flooded the hall. Dawson's men had traced the hack. "Move!" Daniel yelled. Marcus burst through the back entrance, rifle raised, laying down suppressive fire as they sprinted for the studio. A bullet shattered a light rig. Sparks rained down. Leah dove behind a console. Daniel shoved the flash drive into the control unit and slammed enter. The screens flickered. Static. Then Miguel's raw cell phone footage filled every monitor. The kick, the slurs, the slap heard around the world. Every channel switched, every feed hijacked. The city stopped. On 1,000 televisions, the truth screamed louder than sirens. Outside, the crowd froze mid-chant. Silence rippled through downtown. Then someone shouted. He was right. Another voice answered. "Justice for Miguel." Within seconds, the plaza erupted, not in chaos, but unity. Dawson watched from his office window as protesters surged toward the precinct gates, chanting Daniel's name. His phone vibrated with news alerts. Federal investigation launched into LAPD misconduct. He hurled the glass across the room. Find him before they crown him a hero. Back in the studio, smoke filled the air from a shorted circuit. Marcus covered the rear as police flooded the corridor. "We're boxed in," Leah shouted. Daniel scanned the ceiling. An access vent. "Not yet." He boosted Leah upward, then Marcus. As the hatch slammed behind them, bullets tore through the doorway. Daniel pulled himself up last, muscles burning. They crawled through the ventilation shaft, sirens echoing below. At the far end, the vent opened above the parking lot. They dropped onto the van roof, rolled off, and dove inside. Tara floored the accelerator. "Did it go live?" Daniel gasped. Tara grinned. "It's everywhere, news, social, international feeds. You just declared war with the truth." Marcus laughed. "Then let's win it." An hour later, safe in a warehouse outside the city, they watched the world change in real time. Reporters hounded Dawson for answers. Lawmakers demanded hearings. Miguel was escorted on stage at a press rally, tears shining in his eyes. The people had seen. And once people see, they don't unsee. Leah looked at Daniel. "You realize what you've done?" He nodded slowly. "I didn't start a revolution. I just gave one a face. Marcus raised a toast from a chipped mug. To Operation Phoenix. Tara added, and to the fire that doesn't die. Outside, thunder rolled again. Storm clouds gathering over a city reborn. Daniel stood at the doorway, the weight of the world pressing on his shoulders, yet lighter somehow. Behind him, the faint hum of the laptop carried one last transmission. Phase 2, Awakening in Progress. He closed his eyes, listening to the wind and the distant chant of thousands calling his name. The fight was far from over. It had only just begun. Night pressed down on the warehouse like a held breath. Screens glowed in the dark, looping the footage that had shaken a nation. For the first time in days, no one was running. The city outside hummed with anger and hope, two edges of the same blade. Daniel stood by the window, watching distant sirens streak across the skyline. Leah approached, jacket draped over her shoulders, exhaustion etched beneath her eyes. "You haven't slept," she said. He gave a dry smile. "Neither has the country." On the table behind them, Marcus cleaned a rifle with slow precision while Tara typed code lines into a humming terminal. The broadcast had gone viral. Now they were fighting to keep the truth alive before the system buried it again. "Federal Task Force is mobilizing," Tara muttered. "They're calling it Operation Containment. Dawson's still in charge, but someone above him's pulling strings." Marcus looked up. "We poked a monster, and it's waking up." Daniel nodded. "Then we stay invisible. One wrong move, they'll trace our signal." Leah leaned over Tara's shoulder. "How secure are we?" Tara hesitated, just a beat too long. "Secure enough." Daniel caught it. His instincts, sharpened by war, tingled. Something in Tara's voice wasn't code-related. It was fear. Later, the team gathered around the flickering projector. Marcus had mapped new safe routes through abandoned subway lines. Leah presented contacts inside the press who could push their story further. When Daniel's phone buzzed, everyone froze. He checked the message. An unknown number. Only coordinates. North Dock 14, midnight. Alone. Leah frowned. "It's a trap." Daniel studied the coordinates. "Or it's help." "Help doesn't ask you to come alone," Marcus said. Daniel pocketed the phone. "I'll find out." Midnight. Cold mist rolled off the harbor. The docks lay silent except for the creak of ships in their moorings. Daniel moved through the fog, pistol hidden under his coat. A figure emerged near a shipping container. "Tara." He stopped. "You send the message." She nodded, eyes glassy. "They found me, Daniel. They threatened my brother. I tried to stall them, but they already know where the warehouse is." Daniel's voice stayed calm. "Who's they?" Before she could answer, a red laser danced across her chest. A shot cracked. Tara dropped. Daniel dove behind the container, gun drawn. Bullets ripped through the metal, sparks flashing in the fog. He fired back once, twice, and sprinted toward the pier. A black SUV roared to life, taillights vanishing into the night. He knelt beside Tara. Blood spread across her jacket. She clutched his wrist. I uploaded the drive to a cloud mirror. If I die, it lives." Her hand went limp. Daniel closed her eyes. "Rest easy, kid. You did enough." By the time he returned, the warehouse was chaos. Sirens wailed in the distance, closer every second. Marcus had already loaded their gear into the van. "Feds are 2 blocks out," he shouted. "We've got to move." Daniel stormed in, jaw tight. "Tara's gone. They used her." Leah froze. "No." He grabbed the laptops, smashed the hard drives against the wall. "No more digital trails. We scatter. Meet at Ridgepoint in 48 hours. Leah caught his arm. "Daniel, listen." But he was already moving, fury and guilt blending in his eyes. They took one of us. I won't let them take more. The warehouse lights flickered, then went dark. A low hum filled the air. Drones. Move, Marcus yelled. The roof exploded inward as tactical drones swarmed, red sensors cutting through dust and flame. Daniel and Leah sprinted toward the side exit while Marcus covered them, firing short bursts that sparked off steel beams. Go! Marcus shouted. I'll hold them. Daniel hesitated, but Marcus's look said, don't waste this. He pulled Leah through the smoke, out into the alley. They dove into the van, engine roaring to life. Behind them, the warehouse lit up in a blossom of fire. Leah screamed, Marcus. Daniel's voice was stone. He made his choice. They sped into the night, drones chasing like mechanical hawks. Daniel swerved through empty streets until the last one dropped from the radar. Silence settled heavy. Leah stared out the window, tears streaking soot across her cheeks. We're losing everyone. Daniel tightened his grip on the wheel. Then we make their losses mean something. Hours later, dawn bled over the desert again. They parked by an abandoned diner at the state line. Leah stepped out, silent, arms wrapped around herself. Daniel joined her, watching sunlight creep over the sand. Was it worth it? She asked quietly. Tara's death, Marcus's everything? He didn't answer right away. The wind carried faint echoes of sirens, far away now, but never gone. Finally, he said, truth always costs more than it should. But lies cost the world. Leah turned to him. And when they come again? Daniel looked at the horizon where smoke from the city still stained the sky. Then we stop running. We fight. His phone vibrated, a secure signal. A new message flashed across the cracked screen. Ridgepoint compromised. Trust no one. The awakening begins. Daniel exhaled slowly, the weight of those words settling like armor. He looked at Leah, then at the rising sun. Looks like Phoenix has more lives than they thought. He started the engine. The reflection of the firestorm in his eyes burned steady, unbroken. The road stretched ahead, lonely, endless, and waiting. And somewhere behind them, the world they had shaken was finally starting to wake up. The highway stretched ahead like a scar across the desert. Dawn painted the horizon gold, and for the first time in weeks, Daniel felt the faint pulse of hope. The message from the rebels, the awakening begins, had spread like wildfire. Cities were marching, officers were defecting, and Dawson's empire was cracking. Leah sat beside him in the van, laptop balanced on her knees. The feds froze Dawson's assets. Congressional hearings start tomorrow. Daniel kept his eyes on the road. Tomorrow's too late. He'll vanish before the sun sets. Behind them, the radio crackled with overlapping voices, protests, chants, fragments of the truth now too big to silence. Daniel tightened his grip on the wheel. One last play, he said. We end it tonight. By dusk, they reached the outskirts of Los Angeles. Smoke still hung over the skyline. The once bright billboards now flashed hacked slogans. Truth is law. They parked in an alley near the Federal Plaza, where crowds were gathering under floodlights. Leah adjusted her earpiece. Our inside contact confirmed Dawson's holdup in the federal annex, deleting evidence before the auditors arrive. Daniel loaded a flash drive into his jacket. Then we go get it back. He turned to her, voice steady but soft. Leah, if I don't walk out. She cut him off. Then I'm not walking out either. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The world roared outside, and between them hung the fragile quiet of people who'd seen too much to ever be ordinary again. Inside the annex, the hall smelled of ozone and panic. Alarms pulsed red against polished marble. Daniel moved like a shadow, Leah close behind. From the security booth, he heard angry voices, Dawson ordering data purges. They slipped into the main server room. Rows of blinking drives hummed like 1,000 beating hearts. Daniel plugged in his flash drive. Tara's code still works, he murmured. She's with us tonight. Progress bars climbed. Files downloaded. Internal memos, bribe lists, hidden accounts. Every secret the system had buried. Footsteps echoed. Dawson's men burst through the door, weapons raised. Daniel hit enter. The data uploaded to a secure satellite feed. Too late, he said. Gunfire erupted. Daniel dove behind a console, returning fire with a fallen guard's pistol. Sparks rained. Smoke filled the air. Leah crouched by the terminal, shielding the drive with her body. Then a deeper voice cut through the chaos. Enough. Chief Dawson stepped into view, calm amid the noise. His suit was immaculate, his badge gleaming like armor. You think you can burn the house down and call it justice? Daniel rose slowly, gun lowered but steady. No, Chief. Just cleaning up the rot. Dawson smirked. You've turned the city into a circus. People bleeding in the streets for your ego. You did that the day you kicked that cart. For the first time, Dawson's mask slipped. Rage flickered. He lifted his weapon, then a shot cracked, not from Daniel, but from behind. Leah stood with the smoking pistol. You're done. Dawson staggered, clutching his arm. Sirens wailed outside, federal agents storming in. He looked at Daniel one last time, eyes full of disbelief. You'll never change it, he hissed. You'll just become it. Daniel shook his head. Not this time. Agents flooded the room, shouting commands. Dawson dropped his gun and fell to his knees as they cuffed him. Cameras flashed. Reporters swarmed the plaza, the feed broadcasting live, proof of every hidden crime. Daniel let the pistol fall from his hand. For the first time in years, he wasn't fighting. 2 weeks later, Washington, D.C. The marble steps of the Capitol gleamed under the morning sun. Daniel adjusted his tie, strange armor for a soldier, and walked toward the hearing chamber. Crowds cheered outside the barriers. Veterans, vendors, officers who'd resigned rather than lie. Inside, senators waited behind polished desks. The world watched as Daniel Kane raised his right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? He met their eyes. I already did. For hours he spoke about corruption, loyalty, fear, and the duty that outlived uniforms. Leah sat in the gallery, silent but proud. When it was over, the committee chair leaned forward. Mr. Kane, what do you believe justice means now? Daniel paused. The cameras zoomed in. Justice isn't revenge, he said quietly. It's accountability. And it starts with us. Months passed. LAPD underwent full reform. Independent oversight rose from the ashes. Miguel opened a foundation for street vendors' rights, funded by citizens who remembered his name. And Daniel, he disappeared from the spotlight. No interviews, no speeches. Just rumors of a man rebuilding abandoned neighborhoods, helping veterans find peace. One evening, Leah found him outside a half-finished community center in the desert. Children played in the dust while volunteers painted the walls. You still hiding? She teased. He smiled. I'm just rebuilding from the ground up. She looked around. So, this is what freedom looks like. He nodded toward the kids laughing in the distance. Something like that. A warm breeze carried the scent of paint and sand. The sun dipped below the horizon, washing everything in amber light. Leah said softly, You could have run forever. You chose to stay. Daniel's eyes met hers. Running changes nothing. Standing changes everything. She smiled. You think they'll ever forget you? He chuckled. I hope they forget me and remember the lesson. They stood together as night descended. Far off, city lights shimmered like constellations. A world once blinded by lies was learning to see again. Daniel looked up at the sky. No sirens, no drones, just silence. For the first time in years, it felt like peace. He whispered, almost to himself. Phoenix didn't burn the world down, it gave it light. Leah glanced at him. Then maybe it's time for you to rest. Daniel nodded slowly. For now. The camera would have pulled back then. 2 figures in the fading glow, the desert stretching endless around them, the world quietly beginning again.